Welcome to How We Get Through, the podcast where we share stories, mental health insights, and healing advice on life's everyday challenges. I'm your host, Jen, a licensed therapist and founder of the How We Get Through app. We are back with Nick Berry, a licensed marriage and family therapist from Los Angeles. In this episode, we talk about the current divide in acceptance of the LGBTQ+ community and how we can provide love and education to bridge the gap. Nick gives us a closer look into his own path and identity as a gay man and the work he has done to love himself and ultimately help others do the same. Check it out. Hello, welcome back for part 2. We are with Nick Berry, a licensed marriage and family therapist in downtown LA. What? I mean, we like to be sassy in the beginning, but then we go really deep at the end, or towards the middle. So we just
that I just gave was not in response to downtown Los Angeles because I do love it. Contradictory to the myth and the misnomer of downtown Los Angeles, it is not crazy. Yes, it is eclectic and moments, but that piece was in response to this like water bottle spout, like it was slimy and like, what is that?
Oh yeah, you gotta wash that. I never do.
Yes, for the listeners,
you gotta
wash the little thing right here. Wash the little
of your water bottle, the straw and the inside. Don't sleep on that.
Yes.
Yay. Okay, so we're back, and we kind of wanted to dive a little bit deeper into how we can support our kids if they're wanting to talk about their sexuality. Maybe give us a couple of tips, and even like expanding the idea of who can be like a safe person for someone that is exploring their sexuality.
Like, I think like when it comes to like change, like agents of change, I think that the first thing that needs to be present is a sense of safety, right? Like a sense of like physical safety. And so looking at kind of like all of the legislation that's going into effect, that can be difficult to like find, right? And so I think with abortion and women's like bodily rights, I think that that's also the thing. Like this thing that I know it needs to happen that I'm making the decision about is not available, and I need to go somewhere. I need to put myself through extra like possible danger to like get to something that I know that I need, right? But other people are telling me that I can't have it. And so I think, in childhood, that, we have to respect our parents when it comes to certain things. We can't be like, no, F you, mom, I'm not going to go. You're not going to feed me a peanut butter jelly sandwich. Like,
right.
But when it comes to like sexuality, like I think that there are a lot of kids that are not even kids, like I think young adults that are really terrified of the repercussions of what they're going to experience if they go against what their parents believe and say they should be and do, right? So physical safety is extremely important. So whether that's seeking out, whether you're going to a place that, offers services for LGBTQAI plus people, or you are making friends with people that are more supportive of you, I think that it's important to just really ensure your safety. And I think that adds kind of a little bit of anxiety, like, oh my gosh, am I doing this behind someone's back? But I think if you're not sure how to obtain those services or to kind of have access to those, I think also there are parents that are very like with social media, with like technology, parents are like monitoring children, like whether it's grades, whether it's social media. So there is that added element of, will my parents see my history on internet? Right? So it makes it difficult for people to really even question if that's what they are, if they really are gay, if they're lesbian, if they're transgender, because the fear of even being curious is just so and so I think, I don't know how it's for you growing up, but curiosity about some things was fine. Like, hey, where's right?
I think
like,
that was my
peanut butter at, mom? I want to make a peanut butter, so that's fine. Where's the
yes, yeah,
right?
But I like want to kind of speak to like the different variations of like, even if your parents don't say we don't support the gay and queer community, it's almost like what they don't say, right? Like how, or this certain expectation or the unsaid expectations. And so like, that's where I think parents can really kind of step in, and maybe they're scared to as well. But like, what are we saying? What are we saying versus not saying?
Right. And then, I think looking at parents that are just, communication is valued, right? But what type of communication is what we should really be paying attention to. And so, like, is what we're saying versus what we're doing conflicting, right? And kids are more like absorbent of implicit information, right? Like, screw what you say, mom, I'm not going to do that. But like, when I watch mom do this, that doesn't really match what mom says to me, right? And so if curiosity isn't encouraged, then kids can't be like, hey, why did you do that when you told me that I can't do that, right? So we go through this life with this sense of distrust of our parents, right?
Yeah. I think another good example is like, I will always love you no matter what, or you can talk to me about anything
Yes.
at any time. But if those like channels of communication aren't always physically present or physically seen or tangible, it feels like you will love me on a condition that if I do something bad, and this is like, I think this goes for like a gamut of things, right? But it goes from sexuality to I lied about something and now you're going to think I'm so what and so. And I think that's that concrete thinking of children.
Yes.
That is so important, that we have to really keep showing up like that and like being consistent in both what we're seeing and what we're doing.
Uh-huh. Well, and I think that's why like educating ourselves is so important. Having like access to apps and things like this that are raising questions. It's like that, and I'm bringing Brene Brown back into this again, and get some imperfection when she uses the example of in a classroom full of people, the instructor teaching basically like calculus, and people are just like the person that's like, I have no idea what the hell this person like. And they're looking around, and it's that whole like in-group, out-group thing, right? Where if the majority is not doing something or doing something, that we don't want to be part of the out-group, so we're going to just go along with what everybody else is doing. And so when somebody finally says, you know what, like, that doesn't make sense, why I even need calculus, like, what, like, why do I need that? And so then it's like when somebody finally steps up, then everybody else is like, yeah, that doesn't make sense either, right? And then when they're confronted, like, why didn't you say anything? They're like, like, then we're put on the spot, right? Yeah. Yeah. So having information like this, I think, really starts to elicit questions that parents might have that might be afraid to ask. And so let's say a parent is, skeptical, or is, my kid fits into what I'm seeing here. And what I'm seeing here is very like dangerous. Like if I even associate my kid with that, then my protection mechanism goes into overdrive, and I'm like, nope, not happening. And it's not a thing.
Like a denial.
And so when a kid is like, hey, I'm part of this, parents like, no, you're not that. You're not that.
Yeah.
Because you're not supposed to be that. I'm supposed to protect you. Right. Mm-hmm. I know what's best for you.
Yeah. Which is, I mean, I think it makes a good point again on the empathy for parents when we're seeing legislation against the gay and queer community and how hard it is and everything, even in living in California, I'm like, yay, right? But it is scary. It is scary for a parent to have your child go in a place where you can't protect them, and at the same time love them and equip them of getting through that or going there and supporting what they need to do. Both exist.
Right. And, I think I see that. I'm sure when you worked with, like, you work in eating disorders primarily, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's the same as like the addiction to drugs. It's like an addictive mechanism. So looking at kids that like, or young adults, teenagers that are addicted to whatever it is, a lot of them will say, I was told from early on that I was not allowed to do drugs. I wasn't allowed to do drugs. I wasn't allowed to hang out with so-and-so. I was allowed to hang out with so-and-so because parents were so, especially back in like the 80s and 90s, like dare was like a thing. And so there was this like war on drugs, the same with HIV and AIDS. Like people were so scared that they were like, nope, I don't want you part of that. And so you're never going to do anything that might put you at risk of like contracting that thing, right? Addiction, AIDS, HIV, whatever it is. And so what that does though is it robs someone of the natural, like in the lifespan, teenagers are supposed to challenge. Teenagers are supposed to have what their parents tell them is the foundation. And if it's a like secure foundation, now they're confronted with peers who expose them to differing values and differing ideas. And then they get to adolescence, and adolescence is their time to be like, well, mom, if you said I can't do so-and-so because that's going to do what, like such and such to me.
Let's find out.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's the time where we're like, oh, I should listen to my parent. Oh, I failed, but you know what? I'm still around and I'm going to do it differently the next time.
Yes.
So when we rob our kids of those, and it makes sense because I think back when, attachment became a thing, when humanity became a thing, it's like we didn't have all of these external threats, right? So it was easy to let our kid go like hang out at the banana tree, like with the monkeys, and be like, "Here, exactly." But now
we're down at the H or the corner mart with the kids. No, I didn't. But we do have an H Mart here now. That's why I'm like, go to H Mart.
Yeah,
that's delicious. But it's like come home when the street light gets on or whatever, right? Totally. Like we're gonna go roller skating in the cul-de-sac or whatever,
right? Absolutely. Yeah,
it doesn't exist like that anymore either.
No, and I think especially like if there is any sort of indication, whether it's stated or whether it's implied, that the child is questioning or maybe like identifying as a different orientation or identity, like we go to these things to to protect, right? We like we're a communal species, so we are we are designed to like protect and look out for. Mm-hmm. So that's what our natural like protective mechanism is in order to ensure survival. And so it makes all sense why a parent is going to be like, whenever there's a threat, nope, I'm going to react the way I know that a threat should be reacted to. Mm-hmm. And I think I talked about on the course of like perceived threat versus real threat. I think parents really kind of forget to keep that in mind because they're so amped up by this like fear culture that we have right now, right? Where they're not able to say, you know what? Cool, I live in California and there are so many resources available to these people that the center for LGBTQAI teens is down the street. And so they can just go down there. Yeah, something might happen, but I can't prevent something to happen in the future every time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of that is really like learning skills that are going to help in the moment. Yeah, you want to protect your kid, give them advice like, hey, watch out, make sure you sit by a door or anything like that. But like, how do I deal with that? And it's the same thing where people that have been in relationships where there's been like infidelity, right? Moving forward, they're in a relationship and their partner's like, I'm going to go to the bar with my friends. And like the person is like, oh my God, make sure you text me, make sure you do this, make sure you do this. And it's like, how do we manage that distress of the worst case scenario happening?
Yeah. Like biggest parenting or life tip is just learn to regulate yourself.
Yeah. I'd asked you the other day, you posted that thing on like mom anxiety or something. And I was like, does this apply to gay plant dad anxiety too? Like, did I water my ficus too much? Like,
exactly. Absolutely. Exact same thing. Exact same thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I think there is like, sometimes as parents too, you kind of have to like pick your battles of what you're going to lose your shit about as well. Like there are school shootings happening every day, or my kids questioning their sexuality. Like let's put some stuff in perspective, but also like when we are able to do our own work, when we are able to regulate, then we get to help our children as well, even in the unspoken pieces of that, right? In the co-regulation of it, in the action of, I'm scared for you and I love you and let's do this together.
Mm-hmm, totally. Yeah. And that's in the how portion of the course, we go through like different like things to say, things to do, like, hey, come over here and make this sandwich with me while we talk about things to kind of like de-escalate, but also create like a the co-regulation that's necessary and then have the conversation. Or like, hey, I need to go outside and like take a walk. What you told me is really overwhelming right now. Like being honest, like communicating emotion, because growing up, I saw emotions, but I didn't know what they were. I knew angry, I knew happy, and I knew, okay, that was what I knew. And so I didn't know, like, I'm angry because I'm feeling really neglected as a parent because so-and-so isn't doing their job, because that's not something that should be communicated to the child. But if I'm able to recognize, wow, I'm feeling this way because partner didn't do their end of the bargain. And so I'm feeling really neglected and betrayed, but I need to go deal with that somewhere else so that I can process through that, because what you're experiencing has nothing to do with what I'm going through right now.
Yeah, which is, I mean, what I'm obviously learning now in how to communicate that, of like, I feel really upset or I feel really angry. And the communication part to my kids is like, and it's not from you. And it's not yours to hold. And I'm going to be fine. And I'm working through this. And I love you. And I'm sorry it's impacting you. You know, like it's just this, because of that black and white thinking for children and that beautiful sensitivity around their world and other people. And some kids are more sensitive than others. My daughter's a Gemini. So, you know, it is that like, I see you picking up on this and I'm wanting you to like put it down because it isn't yours. And that's obviously a work in progress. Nobody's going to get it right. But I think the willingness for parents to do a little bit more work each day or each year or whatever it is, like, because I think it can be overwhelming of the amount of things that we have to do. But I think as long as you're on the journey of it for yourself, it will impact your kids on this beautiful, bigger level. But we have to dig deep. You have to dig deep, even like thinking you don't have any bias around the gay and queer community. Well, do you? And do you not? We talked a little bit about that in the first one, but like what actually, like, can you sit with yourself in that?
Yeah. And I think even, you know, I think a lot of people automatically assume that this like homophobia exists only within the heterosexual community. But like I was mentioning earlier, internalized homophobia is present in the gay community as well. And, you know, moving to Long Beach, I experienced a lot of that. Like, what are you doing that for? Like, why are you like, there was a lot of that. And you have to like really be confronted with that and ask yorourself, why am I feeling this way? Well, it's because
Give
of
me
what
an example of that.
So like, one example, I remember like I think it was in high school or like just out of high school, and someone gay was on TV, and they were just very like free to be themselves, right? And I think, you know, flamboyant would be a word that people would use to describe that. And so I remember someone saying in my family saying, you know, I don't mind that they're gay, but why do they have to be so loud like that? And so you like go into the community where like we're talking about scarcity, where we want to live in the moment and make the most of it. And you like are finding yourself like at the pride parade being like, oh, why are you wearing that? Why are you wearing that? Like, so
you're
I think,
too loud.
So people that are very like cis het presenting, like myself, like cisgender heterosexual presenting, sometimes we're this way, which is valued in the gay community sometimes, is like a blessing and a curse. And then we're like, well, everybody should be like this. If I can be like this and I'm gay, then why can't other people be like this? Well, other people weren't given the opportunity to be like that. So they have to make the most of it, right? And so I think that's internalized homophobia. And so I think even like when you look at people in the community, you know, you have a lot of people that identify as part of the community that will say, I'm not going to the bars because I can't stand to be around gays.
Wow.
And so like even parents that are like, that identify as the part of the community also should be mindful of how they're communicating their beliefs, or being mindful of their actions or their facial expressions.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that's like kids, like that's where we automatically
that's what they're looking at.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you for that example, because I think it's helpful to get like a concrete experience of it. And I mean, I just was like smiling because when you're talking about like your appearance, and we've never met in person, but Ray, my husband, has filmed your course, and he's like, oh, he's like a big dude. He's like real tall.
I had a
He's
client
like, I
last
didn't
night
know
that
he
was
was like
like,
that.
because I was telling a client last night, I was like, I'm thinking about going back to the office like one day a week. And he's like, oh, he's like, cool. And he's like, I mean, he was like, how tall are you? And I go, I'm 6'6". And he's like, yeah,
6'6", everyone.
yeah,
Wow.
6'6",
Are your
6'6",
parents?
Nick.
Yeah. Are your parents tall? Are your parents
My dad was 6'4", my mom is 5'9", I think. So my sister's tall, so,
okay?
so it just runs in my
Oh
family.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, just had to throw that
Yeah,
in.
but going back to the like parents, in the course we talk about like the fear, we talk about the messaging that's sent. Like if my kid tells me they're gay, oh my gosh. But like going back to like non-conforming parents, like queer parents, like if they've had a negative experience where they were bullied, where they like had to grow up in like Tennessee, like if they hear that their kid is gay, they're like, nope. And there's this parody, I think it was on SNL or Matt TV, where you have the traditional like, you need to be straight so and so, and you're going to go to the straight things, and you're going to do the straight things, and you're going to go. But it was like, you're going to go to like the Taylor Swift concert, right? And like, oh my god, you have straight friends. Yeah, so yeah, yeah,
Yeah, the duality of that again, I think just calls us into our own work when we think we don't have it or we don't have to do the work.
totally,
But that we do
yeah,
have to do that work for our children,
yeah.
for ourselves, and again for the broader, like collectively, for us to heal.
But I think there should also be, now that I'm thinking about this, and I hope maybe I should tell you this on the side because maybe it'll trigger an idea. But
Oh,
like maybe
another
like now there's like your app is basically like a manual for life for
Mhm.
moms and women.
Mhm.
Maybe there should also be like a manual for children
There
to
is,
understand their parents.
okay, Nick, it's coming,
Oh shit!
2024, how we get through teens edition.
Yeah, look at that. But it's
Um,
intended for like teenagers, right?
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So for teens that either their parents don't want them to go to therapy or they don't support therapy, or the teen doesn't want to go to therapy as well, because there's a whole freaking gamut, right? Like, I don't want to talk to anybody. Meanwhile, they're having like panic attacks in the bathroom. So
Ooh, oh
like,
my gosh, you've already thought about it.
yeah, yeah. But that
A true
would, yeah.
visionary here, everyone. A true visionary.
Oh, yes, exactly. Yeah.
Very cool. Great.
But I think again, like, I think the pandemic really kind of blew up this idea that we all need support significantly in mental health. And so it isn't just for one person or one type of person or one gender or anything. It's literally all of us need to heal and all of us need each other to heal. And I just been thinking about that more and more. I mean, I think we kind of niche down for women, I think from a marketing perspective, but the more that, again, I'm doing my own work and I think on the spiritual level is how are we, like, men, women, and everything in between really working together. I think we've had to like separate ourselves because we've been othered or marginalized, and we've had to band together because there's always been one thing against us. And I think that's the biggest lie is, sorry, I'm going into it, but like, what if there was nothing against us? How much powerful would we all be and healed? And I don't know, sorry, but
No,
I'm deep
no,
into
no.
that right now.
I think one thing that I see very present in the gay community is, and I'm not trying to throw shade, I'm not trying to like shame anybody, because we all need spaces where we feel we can connect to people and we have shared experiences, right? But I think in the gay community, one common frustration that is voiced is when straight women come into the space and like, because it's so like welcoming, and because like there's this idea that gay men are welcoming,
Yeah. Best
that
friend. Yeah.
yeah, that like
Mhm.
they come in and like now our space is no longer our space. And I think if there's some way where people can be informed of being more mindful of their behavior when they enter these spaces, I think that would be, and it's the same thing with like white people that are trying to do the work and trying to become more like educated and more sensitive and compassionate towards people of color status. Like white people just can't come in and be like, here we are, like we're here to like educate ourselves, right? You have to be like mindful, and you have to like ask yourself, am I acting and behaving like a guest in somebody's home?
Yeah. Ooh, I love that.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a good point in how we can connect with each other.
totally.
And I think my point was that we have to continue to connect to each other as we're doing our own healing spaces, but we need to ask, how should we enter into these spaces for
Right.
you?
And one thing that like my mission is to like, my philosophy is the more you expect other people to treat you different and expect change, and the less you change within yourself, you can't like, that's going to continue to create the separation, right? So there has to be introspection, there has to be conversation, there has to be connection within the community that's being underrepresented or disserviced, in order for the outside community to see, oh, well, they're not always at the bars. Okay, well, they're at the library, they're at the whatever it is. But I think a lot of people in my community specifically expect so much change to happen from the outside that we don't really do the work inside because we're tired of doing the work, but we're not doing the right work, right? I think that's like the main thing, is to do the right work. And if you're not sure how to do the right work, ask a therapist, ask somebody that is doing the right work, where you're not seeing this like harsh, divisive line between them versus us.
Yeah. And I think there's a good point, and I think this is what you were talking about, like being the white savior or the white woman savior of that, and I don't feel that, because I don't feel like I'm above other people, but I think recently I felt I've had to pair off only women. And I think there's power in that collective trauma, feeling everything, right, for any group. But I think it was so naive to just stay there. And what actual like collective healing, it's almost like, again, like reaching out to hold hands to everybody to connect these groups, versus me coming in and being like, I'm here, you guys, don't worry, because I've done my work and blah, blah, blah. Like that's not, it is our own internal work. And I think, do that. And then also look at other people that are doing their own internal work as well. Like that connection and that healing process, because we can heal each other if it's this mutuality, not this one like savior and pathetic, like who I'm not here to save you.
Right. But I think it requires like going back to the example and kind of what you were just describing, like the example in the classroom where everybody's like it requires like being observant, right? It requires like, wait, you're looking confused. But we don't want to like say, hey, you look confused. Like it's like the Oprah Winfrey book, what happened to you, right? Not what's wrong with you. And so like asking yourself, like getting in the group where everybody's like, where you're like, wait, I'm feeling something. And like, wait, you look like you're feeling something too. Like, how are you feeling right now? Like, are you? And everyone's like, well, I'm not really understanding what's happening right now. And then it takes like the collective understanding. And then you have the designated, like, I'm the spokesperson to come out and say, hey, we're all confused. Can you explain to us what you mean by that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. I love that. And it brings a lot of clarity. And I think it just like invites us into a lot more work. Which again, I talked about some verse part, but I think our generation is here to do, like.
Well, I mean, like the millennial generation, like, yeah, we got screwed on a lot of things, but like what we didn't get screwed on is the opportunity to affect change. Right?
Yeah. And break a lot of, I think, emotional or generational
Absolutely.
cycles collectively, I'm not like, oh, I'm just a regular therapist, guys, that started an app and a podcast.
She's a cool therapist, guys. She's not like a regular therapist. She's a cool
therapist. Oh my gosh, so good.
So, yeah.
Nick, always a pleasure. This is so fun. Again, I would, Nick, for anyone listening, he's going to be a professional podcast guest because he's that good at it. So if you need a guest on your podcast, please hire Nick. But please, if you can for a second, tell everybody where to find you, talk to us about your practice, your website, the Unite app.
Yeah.
Give us the deep.
So, my handle on Instagram for the time being is Say No to Kryptonite. It may change soon. And obviously behind me, Superman. So that's my handle on Instagram. My practice, I'm accepting new clients. Like I said, I primarily work with gay men and couples. But if you are impacted by a gay man or a gay couple, and so, or if you want more understanding on gay men and couples, I can help you out or direct you to people that might be able to help you.
Mm-hmm.
And the Unite app, we're starting the membership community. So basically what it is, it's initially focused on gay men and queer men, but expanding once we have kind of like the system down to other communities, lesbian, heterosexual women, that sort of thing, to give people just like collectively a shared connection to where we can start to really, like, once we have a basic general understanding, we can start to merge.
Yes. Yeah. Love it.
So that's what I'm working on right now. I'm excited about it. If you know a gay man or a queer man that's looking for community, that's looking for connection, that's looking for activities outside of the bars or the typical spaces where a lot of gay men congregate, Unite Mentor or Unite Plus is where you can find them. Also starting some other projects which I'm excited about. So yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. So if you know a gay man or queer man that's just in general that's looking for something to feel a sense of purpose, fulfillment, understanding, direct them to me.
Is that for the Unite app in those communities? Is that LA based only or in other cities?
So the in-person, we're trying to make it more in-person to create more of like a in-person connection, because I think we've lost that a lot. But there will be virtual events, and we're looking at possibly in the future, if things are successful, which they will be, to like go on tour.
Yes.
Prop up Unite events. Right?
Oh, I love that. That's so good. So good. Nick, thank you so much for your love, your expertise, and the healing spaces you continue to provide. It's been so fun.
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Of course. All right. See ya.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to our show. We hope that this has opened more spaces for conversations for you and your kids. And if you found yourself wanting more education on how to provide a safe space for your questioning kid, check out Nick's course, Talking to Your Kids About Their Sexuality, on the How We Get Through app, which is available for both Android and iPhone. Next week, we are talking to licensed therapist Abby Wamba, not to be confused with Abby Wambach, the soccer player. Abby Wamba is a licensed therapist in LA, and she's talking all about chronic pain and how our mental health can be a powerful tool to help us get through. We'll see you then. Thanks so much.